As you've already heard, this is a round table. The idea is this is to give the opportunity to the 10 learning areas to explain a little bit about their work. These are the people who've been at the coalface, really. They're the ones that have been doing a lot of work, and although we have one representative from each learning area, in some cases they are one of a small team, and in some cases they are one of one. So I'm not going to introduce them at this point, but the first time they give a short presentation in response to their answer, I'd like them to just remind people who they are and from which learning area they come from. Okay. To try to speed it up today, we've structured it around a number of questions. It depends on our ability to get through those questions, how many of those questions we will answer. So I'm going to ask the team of learning area coordinators really now to sort of, for those that wanted to address the first question, which was the one about main challenges when they started the project, maybe we could ask Bulgaria to start, because I think they chose that as their first question.
My name is Vera Stefanova, and I come from the learning area which is called Western Stara Planina in Bulgaria, which is a very nice area, but also an area which is having severe economic and depopulation problems. So this is one big challenge which we faced in the beginning, actually, how to motivate the aging people and the people who are migrating for the country to stay there and to continue to work as a farmer. So this is one very big challenge which is facing the country. The other challenge is actually the way the municipal grasslands in this country are used. The municipal grasslands, which used to be a common grasslands before and were used by everyone, following the CAP, the introduction of CAP, this perspective changed, and now they are used individually by the farmers. But the rules and the procedures which they were given to the farmers to manage them are quite challenging and quite demanding, and they are constantly changing. So the regulations are constantly changing, and the farmers do not have security to continue what they are doing. And actually, these municipal or common grasslands are the grasslands which, with a lot of, the biggest part of the biodiversity and the high nature value is in these grasslands, so we need to find ways how this to continue managing in a proper way these grasslands. And the third challenge is how to secure the cooperation between farmers and the different small producers and businesses in order to market the HNV products for from the areas. And of course, last but not least, is the distribution of fair distribution of CAP support amongst the farmers in that area. So HNV farmers in all the learning areas are more or less facing similar challenges and problems, but sometimes it's up to the national authorities to implement the CAP rules that can make the life of the HNV farmers easier. So we need to target on one place the CAP support, and on the other hand, to help to work with the local and the national authorities for doing our best for these HNV farmers.
So my name is Mugurel Jitea, and I'm coming from the University of Agricultural Sciences and Veterinary Medicine from Cluj-Napoca. This region is really special. It's in the middle of Transylvania. We have unique landscapes, and these unique landscapes are produced by our farmers from generation to generations. The learning area that we work with, it was close to Cluj-Napoca, the second biggest city in Romania. It has 10 communes, and in the middle of that area, it exists a Natura 2000 site recognized by our authorities and also by the European authorities. And we went there. Actually, we had several projects in the region. So we had a really participatory approach. We met all relevant stakeholders from the region. We collected information based on survey, based on working seminars, based on interviews, to really understand the challenges of the area. And probably the most important challenge was for the local population to cope with European Union common market pressure. I mean, these people are facing a real economical pressure in a European that is now with 28 member states. They need income, sustainable incomes, so they started to do something or things. Some of them emigrated, others tried to develop local businesses, but the main problem is that they cannot go on the market to sell their products because the regulations, especially in the sanitary veterinary areas, are very demanding. So they cannot have access to market, and most of the traditional way of farming disappeared. And the newcomers appeared in the region, and they wanted to create businesses based on the European funds, I mean rural development funds. And they create these businesses, and now what they want to do is to learn how to apply the HNV concepts, so based on nature. But finally, I think the third challenge is to convince them to work together, so to cooperate. And this cooperation in the eastern part of Europe is not so easy to be achieved. We have a tradition of 50 years that still remain in the mentality of the people, that when you cooperate, so in the former regime, to cooperate means to be controlled in a way. So this is our challenge, is how to convince people to work together, different kind of stakeholders for the future. Thank you.
I have been working as the learning area coordinator in Dalsland, which is an area of approximately 4,000 square kilometers and includes 6 municipalities. And when we worked with the baseline assessment, we realized that we had an extreme loss of HNV land over the past 200 years. Today, only about 1% of the area is categorized as HNV. So our main challenge has been to find ways to shift this land use trend. And in that case, we focused on 2 things. The first one is to find every way we can to secure the continued management of the remaining pastures and meadows. And the second one, and perhaps even more important, is to find ways to restore this abandoned HNV land before the quality is lost. And when we were thinking about how to do this, we identified one kind of weakness that we are focusing on the most of all, and that is to find ways to to make the stakeholders cooperation and work together more efficient. Because in the beginning of the project, we realized that there was no organized group working with these issues, at least not with a longer commitment, and not at the landscape level as well. And there was no expressed strategy or working approach to work with these questions. And from a farmer's perspective, we realized that they have to have this kind of continuous support. But from an advisory perspective, we didn't have any ways to deliver this kind of support. So our conclusion is that we need to create better preconditions for all stakeholders concerned to be able to contribute effectively to this desired land use change.
I'm Thibault. I'm working in a regional conservancy of natural areas. And I've been involved on the learning area of Coast and Seven with two other organizations, the Interdepartmental Alliance for the UNESCO site Coast and Seven and the Regional Chamber of Agriculture. And when we are talking about HNV farming in Coast and Seven, we are talking about pastoralism mainly. What we've seen at the beginning of the project is that many stakeholders, many actors are doing things. We've got a national park, we've got natural regional parks, collectivities, public bodies, association, agricultural representative organization also that are playing a role on gathering production and environmental conservation objectives. So it wasn't a lack of innovation that we stated at the beginning of the project, but more a lack of recognition sometimes of some innovations and of maintaining those innovation in the long term, on the long term. So that was a first point. And another one is that since the beginning of the project, new issues have appeared, and we have to address them now. There is, as it has been said, a new challenge about predation. We have to face the consequences of climate change now, and some other issues that are more and more important, like sometimes the loss of open habitats, the difficulties to have access to land for new farmers, for instance, the risk to lose some subsidies linked to open habitats or wooded habitats that are very important for the maintenance of pastoral activities. That's what we have stated at the beginning of the project. And the last one, at the scale of the learning area, is that we need to gather all stakeholders around common objective, around the maintenance of pastoralism and its multifunctionality, all the services that it procures to humans. We had to experiment how to gather all the stakeholders around that objective to promote pastoralism and its diversity, that it's not a problem but more a wealth we have to consider.
Croatia, it was a quite different context from several levels. As you might know, Croatia is the newest member state, and although we've been a part of the European Union for 6 years now, we're still in the process of implementing the overall acquis, especially in the part of agri-environmental schemes. It was just last year that we started payments for dry stone walls restoration and preservation. And therefore, our learning area of the Dalmatian Islands, as the name says itself, it encompasses the islands of South and Central Croatia. And as it is with islands, we are faced with really strong tourist pressure. Tourist pressure on the islands means that you are prone to do more tourism and less agriculture. That consequently means more urbanization and also more land abandonment. So for us, the biggest challenge in the beginning, as our starting point was quite different from other learning areas, was actually to put up the point and to open a debate on high nature value farming landscapes and high nature value farming practices as such. Because there is no question that our islands are Natura 2000 sites, national parks, nature parks. So when we talk about nature protection levels and when we talk about biodiversity, it is there, it is present, it is acknowledged, but it is not managed. And for us, the biggest and the greatest challenge at the very beginning of this project, when we started doing our baseline assessment, was to open up this debate, to create a network of both multi-scalar and multi-actor network that will open up debate on the importance and the overall position of HNV farming landscapes in our learning area. So we started with that, and during our baseline assessment, I really have to say that we were most fortunate to have both local action groups as leader organizations helping us, which meant that we had a really strong cooperation and strong coordination and communication with the farmers, with the producers associations, with the NGOs, especially with the island NGOs on one hand, and with the fact that on the other hand, we had international support from the AgroParisTech students who are doing Master Spécialisé in Strategic and Environmental Management Analysis that also did part of the baseline assessment with us. So in this process, what was defined as the key issue, there was actually 9 of them, but I will not state all 9. It's better to underline some. So as you already mentioned, the biggest issue in our islands is land ownership. And the land ownership issue is complex threefold. First, island as a geographical scale means that our agricultural parcels are small. The fact that the land ownership is not solved means they're even smaller. So the average farm, the average agricultural holding in our learning area is 2.3 hectares. Somebody once told me that if you want to do agriculture and not starve to death, it needs to be at least 22 hectares. So as you might presume, our way of doing agriculture means encompassing different both tourist and social entrepreneurship activities to stay afloat from the economic perspective. The other thing is that the majority of the land is actually owned by the church. Creating an actor network that will involve the church as one of the key stakeholders. On one of our islands, more than 1/3 of the island is owned by the church. So they are the key actor in the land reconquest that we are trying to do, and opening the discussion with the church on land farming and land management practices was one of the parts of our using process. So that was the beginning story, and that is where we started as a main challenge.
I'm George Vlachos from Greece, collaborating with the University of Thessaly for this, and this is our learning area, Thessaly, the western part mainly. So we identified that the main problem in the area is abandonment of farming, abandonment of the area. So our main goal was to maintain farming and the way it is. As you can understand, the first challenge is that to match innovation with maintenance of traditional practices is a bit complicated. So what we thought is that, in fact, what we have to do is try to valorize, attribute value to these practices. And the main challenge we had with this is that we had to persuade policymakers, we had to persuade local authorities, and we had to persuade even farmers that these practices are valuable. And in this effort, the help of the Commission was very, very, very important. Having HNV there, it was a very big tool for us to persuade people. That's why we feel betrayed. This is the explanation. That's why we want it back, because it's a very useful tool for us. So we had to persuade even farmers that this is very important what they do. And during the baseline assessment, what we found out, in fact, the question was, why are they still there? They should have gone years ago. They're not viable. How can they do it? So we tried to see where do they find the ways, what are the strategies for the resilience? And one of the main things that we found out is that they are based quite a lot on their diaspora, on people who were originating in this area, but they're living somewhere else, in cities or even abroad. They use their diaspora as an outlet for their market outlet. They use their diaspora as investors, because they come back and they invest money, and they use it even for political purposes. They want to reach central policy, even the EU level they want to reach, because they cannot access it. So they use their diaspora for that. So we found out that we have to expand our stakeholders. We have to take in account these people, because they were very important for the area. So this is what we did. And I'm stopping here, because we're going to talk about what we have achieved later.
Yes, good. You certainly can. I mean, I think that there's a range of learning areas we've heard from, and I mean, it's quite clear that there were some huge challenges. And as we heard earlier, the idea of innovation being one of the tools that we might adopt to help high nature value farmland, is really being demonstrated when you relate the innovations we're now going to hear about to the challenges that we've just heard about as well. I think we probably, if there's anybody who's got a specific question on the challenges, we'll take it now before we move to the next question. If not, we'll move straight on to the next question, which is really about what's been achieved. And that could take us all day. So again, I'm being pretty brutal. We're giving people just another 5 minutes to talk about what they've achieved. And we won't hear from every learning area, but we'll certainly start by hearing from the 2 learning areas that we've not heard from before. So I'm going to ask Michael if he could talk from the Burren and from Ireland on what's been achieved.
Thank you very much. Michael Davern, I'm a farmer from the Burren, and I suppose at the outset I would like to say HNV for us was a breath of fresh air, because we discovered, we were 20 years in the making, and we discovered when HNV started that there were so many other areas throughout Europe that we had so much in common with, a lot more than what we had dividing us. And while the problems were very, very different, the solutions were very, very different. What we had in common was the template to identify what those problems were. What had been lost in the last 70 or 80 years? Why had it been lost? How could we put it back using modern day technology? And how could we get the farmers in the area to buy into such a scheme? And that's what started in the Burren 20 odd years ago. And the same template can be used today anywhere in Europe, and is being used to come up with the solutions. I suppose in the Burren, the success has been a long time building, and we're very fortunate to have Brendan and James and the team in Cairn, which templated the problems and found the solutions using life funding from Europe. And building on those solutions, we created the idea that the environment was a product, and we turned it into that product through the scoring system and farmers getting paid for that delivery. And that also can be used throughout Europe to get money into the local farming areas. The main challenges facing us, I suppose, at the moment is twofold. One is, how can we evolve to the next level and make the farming systems that we have in the Burren attractive for the next generation of young farmers to take over and continue the work that we've begun. And that's what we're challenging now. And the second challenge that faces us is when we hear that responsibility is being handed back to our local governments. How are we going to get the civil service educated and up to speed on how local schemes work from the ground up? I suppose the success of the Burren proves that if you want to change the world globally by acting locally, this is the perfect example of how it can be done.
Thank you, Michael. It's good to hear that HNV-Link has been a breath of fresh air for the participants. Is the air as fresh in Portugal, or what's been happening there, Isabel?
Hello, my name is Isabel Castro Oliveira. I come from the University of Évora, and our learning area is an area of Montado. Hello? Oh, yes, sorry. Our learning area is an area of Montado, which is an agro-silvopastoral system, and you will get all details in the poster outside, so I won't spare my time on that. And really what I wanted to focus on is what we achieved with the project. Many people spoke about the need of time to establish relationships and to establish co-construction processes. So I think in this project, HNV-Link gave us a platform for this co-construction process. It was not right at the beginning. We had started before already. The university works a lot in this type of work, some in this type of co-construction of knowledge. But the HNV-Link provides us this platform, and we build this multi-actor group with researchers, with farmers, and with administration. And through the baseline assessment and the identification of the needs of innovation, we arrived to this need of political help to overcome the big challenge. Our big challenge is really the Montado is in sharp decay. We are losing about 5,000 hectares per year of Montado. And this loss is not only in the total area, we are losing in density, and this loss is due to an incapacity of regeneration. So this is the big challenge. And so identifying the needs, we arrived to this need to go through the implementation of agro-environmental schemes that will help us to deliver environmental goods together with the products, with the traditional products, which are mainly cork and animal production in this system. So at this point, we are in a stage where we have a group of actors that are that had the possibility, and here I wanted to introduce the possibility of the cross visits in our process was very important. We went to Ireland to visit the Burren, and it was a very important inspiration for us. And we are using this previous experience to develop agro-environmental scheme to our Montado. So, of course, 3 years is not enough for this. So at this stage, we have the basics of and when I mean the basics is the stakeholder group, the group with the different participants. We have identified what are the results that we want to achieve. But now we still have the rest of the process. And for that, we really need the support of financial support to implement, to start from a small pilot and to go on to show that this can work for the Montado. So we have the Barren as a model, but the situation is different. But it's always a very good support to be able to go back to the Barren and to get help from there. And this is the process in what we are just now.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to look to Sweden and Lars to continue with the theme of what you've achieved in the last 3 years.
I think we have a similar situation as in Portugal. We have started to try to improve the preconditions for the stakeholders to work together. And for example, we have started to build this local network so the stakeholders can find each other to start with. We have tried to work with how to talk with each other about topics that we perhaps didn't talk about earlier. As a part of the baseline assessment, also this to create this common vision was a very big and important step. Another thing that we have started to work with is to try to build a kind of organization that can live after the project, and we have started a core group of stakeholders: farmers, advisors, people from the municipalities, that we are calling Dalsland Catalyzing Group. And we hope that this group can be catalyzing the process in the future. We also talk about this kind of toolbox. I think it was you, Guy, who talked about a toolbox of innovations to be more efficient in the future. And our toolbox is a kind of mindset that we talk about continuously. And we are asking ourselves different questions. And for example, which kind of tool do we need? Is this needed tool can we find it in some of the other learning areas? For example, our cross visit in Ireland was very helpful in that kind of way. And if we find this kind of tool, how do we do to make it good for our learning area? Can we sharpen it in some way? So this is this kind of mindset that we are trying to build and try to implement in this catalyzing group.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think George left us with a bit of a cliffhanger in what's been achieved during the project,
Yeah.
so we want to know that now.
Yeah, so one of the things that we can say about this project is that it helped us continue the process of building trust with stakeholders locally and being able to facilitate the dialogue among them also. We created a platform we established now after many years with the help of this project, a platform where they can talk, and they can talk freely, and they can talk about their problems. This is one thing. The second thing is that what we're hoping to do is to reinforce the network using HNV as the main thread line that is going to unite these people. So they're going to be around that. In order to do that and to realize our vision, the common vision that they expressed, which is the peaceful reconquista of the land, reconquer the land, take back for agriculture. What we thought that they need some incentives, and the incentives were not asking someone else, but we're asking the market to do that. In order to do that, we thought that by using new innovative technologies, that we could create a participatory guarantee system where they could sell these and adding value by their own practices to their products. So this is what we thought that we can do. And now some very practical ones is that thanks to some efforts about that and to the mention of these things in the CAP, we could persuade our local, our national police that they have to do something about planning for HNV, and we already have two cases where the HNV approach is used in national planning for the RDP. And then we hope that we're going to transfer this experience to Cyprus, where they are quite keen to hear this approach, this HNV approach, and trying to, let's say, connect the different Natura 2000 areas by HNV practices. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if we could now go back to Romania, so that Muya could tell us a little bit about what they've achieved.
Thank you. Yes, so after this project, we built a strong network of multi-actor approach. So we have different stakeholders inside, and some seeds of good news emerge in the region. I mean, we have there in the back not a biologist that stay very close to a farmer, and the farmer and the biologist now try to work together to build future projects. And these future projects means to have a local brand that has inside the HNV concept. Then about the policymakers, usually they are very, very busy. That's why they are not, some of them, with us today. But at the local region, I mean in the region from where we are coming, the HNV type of agriculture is now recognized to be a strategic option for the future. And this is due to this project and due to the presentation that we had in several meetings at the regional level. But things have to wait a little bit, because 3 years are not so many. We still have to struggle to make the public policies more relevant for the farmers, and to do that, we have to convince policymakers that they have to work with the farmers when they are creating these policies. And I think this is enough, because I will give the floor to the others to say something.
Well, a lot that has been achieved during the project seems to be building a network. Yes. And we had a network to start with, so the third question is with regard to the cross visits and our own network. And we will start with Pedro in Spain. How did the cross visits help you?
Thank you. We are reserving the best for the end. I'm Pedro, I'm from Spain. I work at Entre Tantos Foundation, that is an NGO devoted to public participation, to citizens' participation in policy making. We started from a very difficult position with our HNV system, that's also pastoralism, and in our learning era, pastoralism was in a critical situation. It's going to disappear, drowned by sanitation problems and profitability and, well, problem that we share with any other LA. The thing is, for us, that we are very focused on social innovation, because we felt that we need to strengthen the relationships between all stakeholders, but mostly between the farmers themselves, because they have no voice. We have tried to develop this voice, to get them to prepare their meetings with politicians, to build some capacity that they need even to keep doing their activity. So for us, the cross visits has been outstanding. We visited our neighbors, Portugal and France, and they teach us two very important lessons. In France, we learned, and most important, our invitees learned that we can share a common strategy. In this case, the strategy to maintain these open environments, these pastoralist landscapes, and that we can't build collaboratively. We can build a strategy, we can share it, and everybody involved can do his work or their work in this strategy. Agricultural and environmental agencies from the government working together in the same direction, along with the unions, with environmental institutions, with protected areas managers, and along with people in the field. That was a very important lesson for us and for our politicians too. And in Portugal, we also learned that the university can be deeply involved with actual problems with people in the field, also in the field. So I don't know. We feel reflected in this in both working teams. We feel less alone working in our learning area after visiting them.
Thank you, Pedro. It's up to me now to introduce myself because I felt very strongly that I wanted to react and respond to this particular question about cross visits. I work with a group of farmers on Dartmoor who are commoners. They farm on common land. Most of them, in fact, almost the majority, have been in agri-environment schemes of one name or another for nearly 30 years. And without the support of agri-environment, it would be very difficult to understand how those businesses would be viable. And some people, I think, perceive these upland farmers farming on the top of Dartmoor as very isolated. And I think we were aware that some of the innovations that those farmers had developed themselves, most of the innovations that we featured on Dartmoor are ones that are farmer-inspired. They really wanted to be able to talk to others and learn, and I think to really have some empathy that there are other groups of farmers facing the similar problems, not just in the UK, but in Europe as well. So we really did look at the cross-visit aspect of this project as a very, very positive step. Not only to visit some places, but more importantly to host visits as well. I mean, one thing I've learnt working with the farmers during this period is that farmers love to visit other farms. And if you can build on that, and they can learn, they have far more confidence what another farmer tells them is correct than any other advisor or government official. So if you can get the farmers to have a dialogue and be a constructive dialogue, then you really do start to move things on. Dartmoor's main visit was taking farmers to Sweden, where we were looking at some of the issues. And if I look back on it, although we went there with some very specifics in mind, actually where the value lay was in the dialogue, the thinking, learning, that process of opening up and sharing experiences and not feeling that they were alone. We've benefited from a visit from the Burren to Dartmoor, and one or two individual farmers we've managed to get over to Ireland at various times. And I just think that has really started to cross-fertilise ideas. And one of the things on the Burren that really impressed our farmers was the winterage school, the celebration of farming within the community, which they really felt they had lost. They didn't feel valued as farmers within the Dartmoor context, or let alone the UK context. And what was so wonderful was about 2 months ago, one of these farmers, completely off his own back, decided excuse me, to advertise to his local community for them to come to his farm and to go up onto the moorland and to follow when he gathered his sheep off the high moor back onto the farm. And he thought that maybe half a dozen people would be interested. That very first event attracted 60 people. And it was such a small step for him. It was such a massive step for the community. The farmers are talking about it. Many others may now start to adopt it because they suddenly realize they have something to offer. And they can start to be valued within the community. And at the same time, get these messages over that they need to get over about how important it is for farming to be maintained on Dartmoor, to protect the environment and to deliver a range of public benefits. Okay, so I hope you've got the message that cross visits, we think, have been incredibly valuable. But I believe that Bulgaria was still keen to talk on cross visits. Oh, thank you.
Okay, so yes, we were keen to share our experience on cross visits. In fact, we managed to send people and to send stakeholders in 3 countries. We visited our neighboring countries, Greece and Romania, and we sent one of our HNV farmers who is here, and he can tell more during the lunch break if you wanted, to Sweden and what his experience is there. What we tried to do actually, and what I think we have also achieved, is the so-called, we call it HNV Partnership Group, because it's similar to what everyone said, but it's a mix of stakeholders with different backgrounds, which are now gathering together, discussing, and trying to move in one and the same direction. So we try to involve as much as many people from these stakeholder groups to go to the visits. And I think we managed to send 24 people to these countries to see how are the HNV farmers and the local communities working in these countries. We have learned a lot, but one thing which these cross visits gave to our people and to us as well is to learn that they are not alone, and that we are not that far behind. And let's put it that way, you know, I'm actually telling you, I'm citing one of the farmers, what one of the farmers did when he returned, that everywhere there are problems and challenges, but we are not that far behind, and we can try to look for solutions and to find new ways to deal with our problems. So this is one thing. The other thing is that they really provoked farmers and administrators and municipal officers to try to look for new solutions, to try to look for things which might be implemented in our territory and which might lead to better conservation of our grasslands, of our HNV areas. So what we took from different countries, I can name some of the innovations. For example, from Greece, the majority of the group was very impressed, not of the innovations which were described and which we have tried to distribute, but of the way the diaspora was used to promote and to market the HNV products from the area. So this was actually discussed very much during our way back, and actually we were trying to see how we can capitalize on this and to use the diaspora from this severely depopulating and migrating area in order to promote the products which are coming from there. From Romania, we took the example from Sweden as well, the way the facilitators work and the way the animation is done and how they are catching the momentum and working in order to achieve the conservation of these areas. And also that some of the rules can be, some of the rules can be interpreted different even in so close area like Bulgaria and Romania. For example, the community enterprise for food processing in a debt region, this was something which was very much appreciated by our community and our local stakeholder group. And the thing is that it can happen in Romania, but it still requires some legislations to be changed in order for this to happen in Bulgaria. So these are some lessons which we learned, and some of them, there are more, but we think that through these lessons and through this confidence which we gave to our people, we are moving step by step ahead toward the goal we want to reach.
I see Isabel wants to come in, but is it about cross visits? Yes. Okay, well, I'll let you off this time.
Very quickly about the cross visit to the Bahrain. One benefit that we, not only, I think it's a benefit from all the cross visits, the fact that we managed to take people from the different stakeholder groups means that these people can get back to the connections that were established, mean that everybody can get back to the contact through different ways, and we'll keep the relation to the future. And I think this is very important in terms of trying to implement innovations and transfer innovations from one place to the other. So I think that's a great benefit from the cross visits too.
Okay. I know Michael wants to come in on the cross visit. In 1 minute, Michael? 1 minute. This will be our first, Michael.
Thank you, John. What I'd like to say about the cross visits is this. Firstly, HNV, this is the beginning. It has achieved an awful lot in a couple of years. This is a beginning, not an end. And in the cross visits, a lot has been said, and it's all very true. But hosting a cross visit is as important as going, because it brings the community together, and everybody wants to put their best foot forward. And I know in the farming community, it brings us together. The second point I'd like to make about the cross visits is it also brings together our academics, our environmentalists, our educationists, our farmers. And we begin to see each other's point of view. And we like to think that through that we have an input as farmers into the legislation and how the schemes were designed.
Thank you.
So more of it.
Yep.
HV is here to stay.
Thank you very much. There is a fourth question, and I'm going to be rather cheeky and ask people who've put their names forward to answer if they can be very brief. The question that we asked was really, with hindsight, when you look back, was the challenges, were the issues, were things the same as what you thought they would be? And I suppose really, how are we going to take this forward? So very, very quickly, I know, Pedro, you wanted to answer on this one.
Well, looking backwards, We know that 3 years is not a lot of time. We know that we are fighting powerful trends of abandonment, of concentration, and misunderstanding between stakeholders. We have helped stakeholders, farmers to organize, to gain voice, to build capacity. But even looking backward, I say our main concern is if we should have put more resources on the ground. If we could have been more people working directly with them, if this could be our main objective in the local side of the project. Actually, we think that we need to set up a permanent advisory team to work side by side with farmers. And this is how we are expecting to continue our project. Anyway, there is a question that for us is very important. We are not so worried about what's going to be with the project after it finishes in our LA. Because we were working there before we started HNV-Link project, and we will be working there some months from now. But what's going to be of our network? We have been strongly supported by the network we have created along this project, and I think we need still this support. So our main concern right now is how to keep in touch, how to keep building this network, how to expand, how to reach, I don't know, people that is here today coming from southern Mediterranean countries, looking for our HNV concept, and how to maintain and how to expand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it's a start, not the end, and there's still things to be done. And unfortunately, I missed the question that France was supposed to be answering earlier, so Thibaut is going to answer a completely different question now. I'm sorry, but it's all right, yes. You were talking about powerful trends, Pedro, and I know that France was the only one talking about climate change in their GAP. And I think that's very interesting that there was only one learning area talking about such a powerful trend as a gap in their baseline assessment. But anyways, is there anything you feel is left to be done? What's next, and what's the way forward for your learning area?
I think the same than Pedro, that it's just a continuity to assume now on the action that have been studied. I think we've got some tools to use at the level of our learning areas. We've got a UNESCO site with a governance, with an organization, and it could be useful to have moment and places to discuss all together, all stakeholders, link it to pastoralism. And we have to promote the innovation done by the local actors themselves. We have seen that many of the innovation observed in COP27 were impulsed by farmers, and it could be useful to support the creation of innovation, and not only when they are successful. So we have to improve it. Yeah, and I don't know, we have to continue to work all together, and maybe involve more and more the general public, the local authorities that could be actors very pertinent and useful for the HNV farming and pastoralism, because the benefit of, as we have said, the landscapes, the ecosystem services, the presence of such a high level of biodiversity, so they have to be involved.
Okay, and I think the last speaker.
That means be brief, I suggest. Okay. No, well, when we talk about moving forward, for example, in hindsight for us, what we realized is that actually the national coordinator of the learning area actually acted as an institutional entrepreneur who has framed a hybrid space where different actors came together to create collective conditions, the HNV conditions, that will induce change in the environment, that will put up the HNV story. And for us, moving forward is actually continuing the work of this hybrid space through our multi-scalar, multi-actor network with different projects, moving forward with Erasmus Plus Knowledge Alliances, moving forward with Horizon research projects, moving forward with operational groups, moving forward with leader cooperation projects, because as the newest member state and as the learning area that has just started, we have a long way to go, and inspired with our colleagues that have done a lot of work in Greece especially, they're a true inspiration, and Ireland as well. We plan to move forward with new projects and to foster this hybrid space and the need for an institutional entrepreneur that will lead the way. And that's it.
Thank you very much. I think you've heard some pretty impressive presentations this morning. Well, it's afternoon, but it's still this morning's session. Both from what the drivers were for innovation, the types of innovation that have proved to be useful, the networking, and the positiveness about going forward. I mean, I haven't heard anybody over the last couple of days actually discussing sort of the negative aspects, or just the benefits that have been uncovered over the last 3 years. I think because of the time, and I think because of lunch, I think you all deserve to be released into some proper air. So thank you very much to all the coordinators who've presented during this session, and thank you as an audience for managing to sit through it. Thank you very much.